Minutes ago, Vice President Mike Pence unveiled detailed plans for President Trump's call to create a new branch of the military called the Space Force. Speaking at the Pentagon, the vice president said the plan is to establish a United States Department of Space by 2020.
The time has come to establish the United States Space Force. And that's what brings us here today. 7 weeks ago, President Trump directed the Department of Defense to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the sixth branch of the armed forces. The President made it clear that our ultimate objective is to create a new branch of our military that's separate from and equal to 5 other branches. To be clear, the Space Force will not be built from scratch, because the men and women who run and protect our nation's space programs today are already the best in the world. Since the dawn of the space age, America has remained the best in space. Our adversaries have transformed space into a warfighting domain already, and the United States will not shrink from this challenge.
Now, the administration can't just unilaterally order the Defense Department to create a new military service. Congress has to be involved, and the vice president said the administration is already working with congressional leaders to do just that. He said the president's next budget will include funding. As a first step, the vice president said a new Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space position would be created. Joining me live now, retired astronaut and Navy combat veteran, Captain Mark Kelly, who commanded the final mission of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. He is the husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. That would be interesting to see how she would react to this as a member of Congress. But let me ask you, because I know back in June, I think it was, you called creating a new military branch called the Space Force a dumb idea. So now, you've got the vice president going out there. He's announcing it. What do you think people need to know?
Well, I certainly still stand by my dumb idea comment that I made about 7 weeks ago. The Air Force Space Command already does this. It's at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado. They do this with about 20,000 people. Might sound like a lot, but compared to the size of the other branches of the military, it's relatively small because, and it's sized, the way it needs to be for the threat. The vice president was right. There is a threat out there. Right before my third space flight, the Chinese launched a kinetic kill vehicle and shot down one of their own satellites at 500 miles, created a big mess for us on our mission and for satellites in general. There is a threat out there, but it's being handled by the U.S. Air Force today. Doesn't make sense to build a whole nother level of bureaucracy in an incredibly bureaucratic DOD.
Is it essentially your concern that what happens then, since there are some elements of this in all of the different branches of the military, but as you say, most of it's in the Air Force, does the net effect become that you essentially have 2 smaller, maybe less powerful, even maybe less efficient branches?
Well, I think what you would do is you would pull the Air Force Space Command out of the Air Force, give it a new name, give them new uniforms, and they would continue doing the same job they do today. But you would add a lot of civilian staff and, appointed positions in Washington, D.C., more payroll. They say this is going to be budget neutral. Well, to add the bureaucracy, you're going to have to take away money from somewhere else where it's probably being used on the front line somewhere. So just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not like, to project power overseas with the Navy, we put people in ships out there. Along the shores with the Marine Corps, the Army is 400,000 people. It takes a lot of people. To operate in space, that is not true. That's why currently it's about a force of about 20,000 within the Air Force.
So let me make the simplistic argument, the easiest one that we hear on the other side, and that is we need to lead. We need to keep secure. Space is, in many ways, at least in terms of defense, a burgeoning frontier. And putting special emphasis on that, a branch of the military that is focused only on that and not other things, makes sense. What would you say to that argument?
I mean, I hear the argument. And I would say if there are areas where we were falling short at this point, maybe it would make sense to do that. and I'm a Navy guy, right? I'm not usually the person out there commending the Air Force for anything. We're rival services, but they do a really good job at this, and they've done it for a long time. They understand it really well, and to remove this from the Air Force, well, first of all, I don't think they're going to like it, and it's a little bit of an insult to them. And it is an area where we should continue to focus on. China, especially, is a rising threat in space. We've got to protect, our capability there, but we can do this within the U.S. Air Force. They do it today.
It was interesting because Mattis told reporters, we are in complete alignment with the president's concern about protecting our assets in space that contribute to our security, to our economy, and we're going to have to address it as other countries show a capability to attack those assets, which is different from saying this is the greatest idea since sliced bread. What are you hearing? I mean, is there anybody within the military who thinks this is a fantastic idea?
The only person that I've heard say this is a fantastic idea is the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States. Everybody else says it's redundant, it's wasteful. We don't have the need out there right now. I would have hoped he would have waited a few more years to get a little bit more educated on what our military capabilities currently are and what the threats are out there. I think there's a little bit of lacking of understanding in the White House at the highest levels at this point. Obviously, General Mattis wasn't sold on this idea. I don't think he still is today, and others within DOD as well. I haven't heard of any big fans out there for this.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.